Welcome back, everybody. If you're new, my name's Nicholas, and this is Investing Against the Grain. We had a crazy day yet again, right? This continuation of just the bleeding that we're seeing in the stock market. And so before we get into this video today, I just want to level set about what this video is going to be about. We're going to talk about two things. One, we're going to talk about when do I think this bleeding is going to stop? When do I think it might be safe to get back into buying and stop trying to catch a falling knife when it comes to Tesla? And also, we're going to talk about this new CNBC article that just came out as I was waiting to record this. I actually tried to record this video twice, and the battery in my camera died. And so in that time, this article came out, so I figured we'd just cover it real quick as well. But first, let's get to the main point. I'm just an engineer, none of this financial advice, so we'll start off with that. Now, with that said, I also want to caveat that I think trying to time the bottom of anything is a fool's game. I think you're best off buying as much as you can every single month and just dollar cost averaging. Now, with that said, I do have an opinion on when I think things will turn around and when we can breathe a sigh of relief and when things can start trending back upwards. For that perspective, I think April. I think by April, we'll start to see things turn around. Why is that? Well, there's a few things happening. First of all, let's talk about today. Today was, in general, a complete sell-off due to Russia-Ukraine tensions, U.S., NATO reactions to applying sanctions onto Russia for invading parts of Ukraine that were backed by Russian separatists. Right? If you don't know what's going on there, just turn on the news. It's all they're talking about now, right? We went from Joe Rogan and COVID and Elon Musk and all this stuff to now it's all about this Russia-Ukraine thing. So that's the new hot button for the news. So if you want to know more about that, just go take a look at it. But the point is, this tension and these new sanctions are why the market went down today. Most notably because of what it means in the bigger scheme of things for inflation. With the sanctions being put on Russia, and especially if sanctions get even tighter on Russia, what they're really going to target is people purchasing oil from Russia. So Europe is a huge consumer of Russian oil. And if Europe cuts that off, if the US and NATO and everybody cuts that off, that's going to be very detrimental to Russia. Keep in mind, about 90% of all of Russia's economy is oil. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, that means that we'll have pain to Russia, but we will also have pain. Okay, believe that. Right? You think we see inflation now, especially when it comes to energy, it's going to get a lot worse, especially if we cut off any oil coming from Russia. Because that means that we will have all this extra supply that we're just going to nix, and we don't have really anything to backfill this. So oil is going to get more expensive. We're not producing a lot more. Right now in the U.S., we're kind of on the opposite side of things where we're giving out less grants to federal lands for drilling. So it's kind of a tough situation right now, especially for Biden. But Biden today, during his press conference, said that we should expect to, feel some pain, right? This is going to be on all of us. And so I think that is a big part of why the stock market went down today. Now, I will say, after Joe Biden spoke, we did see a little bit of relief coming off of the bottoms with the stock market. And this brings me back to my main point about why I think in April we will have better clarity and we'll start to see a run up. Because why did we all of a sudden have a little bit of a relief and come off the bottoms after Biden spoke? Because the market finally knew what was going to happen, right? All the market ever really wants is to know what's going to happen from the macro perspective and from the Fed perspective. That's all they want to know. They want to know what's your direction, what are you going to be doing, what are your policies. So before Biden spoke today and before we actually knew what the U.S. response was going to be to Russia for essentially doing a Crimea 2.0, we didn't know. Everything was in the air. Everybody could guess whatever they wanted, and we didn't know what the U.S. reaction would be. After 2 p.m. or 2:30, we knew what the U.S. was going to do, and we knew where everything stood. So that gave the market a bit of a breath of fresh air, or a sigh of relief is a better way of saying it. I think by April, we'll know how this whole Russia-Ukraine story is going to play out. We'll know if Russia is going to continue to invade Ukraine, which honestly I think will mean nothing in the big scheme of things because we're not going to go to war in Ukraine. We're not going to send troops there. The only way that there will be any actual physical conflict would be if Putin decided to invade into any of the NATO nations, right? The other former Soviet countries that were part of the Soviet Union. All right, so that's that part of the geopolitics. But keep in mind that part of the geopolitics really has a bigger play on inflation, like I mentioned with oil, which sends us to the next point. March. Mid-March, we should have, well, before mid-March, we'll get a CPI index reading. So a reading on what inflation is, and that will tell us where we are, right? Are we starting to neutralize, or are we still going up? Are we going up month over month? What's it look like year over year? Year over year, come April, May, June, we should start seeing that come down. But right now, we still see things kind of rising. So what does this mean? Well, this information, this CPI data, which will be reflective of what we had for February, right? The March readings look back to February. But mid-March is when the Fed will go ahead and probably hike rates. And this, again, is something that the market is very hesitant about, right? Some people think it'll be 0.25%. Other people think it'll be 0.5%. The problem with 0.5% is right now, if you look at the 2-year and 10-year, it'd be inverted. So that would be kind of a problem. So once we know what the Fed's going to do in mid-March, whether it's 0.25% or 0.5%, I don't think it really matters. I think from there, as long as Jerome Powell gives a message of we're going to do 0.25% or 0.5% for the next 2 to 4 rate hikes, we plan on doing a rate hike every 2 months or something of that nature, right? Give us some type of timeline, some table to look at and understand. I think the market will respect that. The market will reward that. And that's all Jerome Powell really has to do. All right, he needs to be careful. But on that same note, he also now, he already had this whole issue to deal with. He has, thinking about the U.S. debt, what it'll mean to raise interest rates, what it means for the yield curves. Like he's got all these different things. What with the supply chains, how that's affecting everything. But now he has to deal with Russia. And what happens if we cut off oil from them? Now he has to, take that into effect. So there's so many things going on here, so many different moving parts that I think by April, we will have a much better clear sight of what's going to happen. Now, things could get a lot worse. Things could just be choppy, or things could get, slowly better as we start to get some good news. Think about it. So far in 2022, it has been brutal. We have had no good news, right? Everything has just been beaten down. Everything's been bloody. We've seen growth stocks taken to the woodshed. It has just been insane. But this is why we invest for the long term, because what do we really care about these moments, right? If you're invested in stocks and you're just thinking about 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, especially with a company like Tesla, that's irrelevant, right? It really is, because these are the times where you want to buy and accumulate. Now, I know it's scary, and some of you probably don't have any more cash to deploy. Well, this is where I would say if you just have stock, don't worry about it. Sit back, relax, okay? If you have options, different story, right? If you have options, you have to understand what you're doing. You have to understand your risk. Are you getting any kind of house calls, right? You need to take all that into consideration, but protect yourselves, because I do think over the next month and a half, it's still going to be very choppy, and it could get uglier before it gets into the bright side. That is what I think is going to happen. I think by April, we'll have clear sight with Russia. We'll have clear sight with the Fed. And more importantly, I think Austin will go ahead and get announced to be open, right? We have the Austin grand opening party April 7th, I think is projected. We may have good news about Berlin, right? We're thinking maybe mid-March we'll get the permits to go ahead and start production. And then we also have the Q1 total vehicles sold for Tesla. We'll get that in April. And then, of course, at the end of April, we have Tesla earnings. So there's a lot of stuff that can really, come end of March, beginning of April, we can start seeing some momentum. And I think in general, when you have so much negativity, so much selling, you get to a point where there's just an exhaustion of selling. And it's kind of like a pendulum swing where now we have to swing back to the other side, or at the very least back to neutral. And I think neutral for Tesla will be anywhere between $900 and $1,000 a share. And I think that's where we could see ourselves around April, May timeframe. All right, again, none of this is investment advice, just an engineer giving you my opinion, because I keep getting asked by friends, by family, by subscribers, by fans. So I'm just trying to give you my 2 cents. Don't time the market. In general, buy, hold, and be able to go to sleep at night. Trust me, the stress is not worth it whenever you have all these crazy options going on, and it just keeps you up at night and you're just stressed about it. At the end of the day, if you have a 5-year horizon, all of this means nothing. With that said, let's transition into this article. Like I said, I was waiting for my camera to charge, right? We tried twice, it died twice on us. And so this article came out during that time. So let's take a look at this and just review it real quick. All right, so here we can see headline says Elon Musk accuses Biden of ignoring Tesla, but says he would do the right thing if invited to the White House. Now, I read this briefly before I pull this up, so bear with me. Tesla CEO Elon Musk, in an email exchange with CNBC on Tuesday, accused President Joe Biden of ignoring his electric vehicle company in favor of paying more attention to legacy automakers. So if we scroll down here, they have nothing to worry about, Musk said. I would do the right thing if invited to the White House. Musk's comments came after CNBC contacted him regarding fresh reporting that Biden and the White House have no immediate plans to invite Musk to potential upcoming meetings with corporate leaders. The people who spoke to CNBC about how the White House regards Musk declined to be named in order to speak freely about private conversations. The notion, this is from Elon, the notion of a feud is not quite right. Biden has pointedly ignored Tesla at every turn and falsely stated to the public that GM leads the electric car industry. And in fact, Tesla produced over 300,000 electric vehicles last quarter and GM produced 26. 26, Musk said in the email. If we scroll down here, we get some more quotes. Here we go. It got to a point, hilariously, where no one in the administration was even allowed to say the word Tesla. The public outrage and media pressure about the statement forced him to admit that Tesla does in fact lead the EV industry. I wouldn't exactly call that praise, Musk said in a Tuesday email. If you guys recall, this is when Biden finally capitulated and said Tesla in one of his briefings. So that was interesting. A White House spokesperson praised Tesla on Tuesday in an email to CNBC. Tesla has done extraordinary things for electric vehicles, and that's a big part of why the whole industry now knows EVs are the future. Well, it's good to see that some people in the White House acknowledge this. The White House representative also took aim at Musk. Tesla also benefited greatly from past EV tax credits, but unfortunately, their CEO has suggested in opposition to new EV tax credits, the representative said. This is such a twisting of words and logic. First of all, the EV tax credit that Tesla benefited from still exists. Every OEM can still use that tax credit, right? I think it's only good up to 200,000 vehicles. Tesla used it all, right? GM used all of theirs as well. But if you haven't used your credits for those amount of vehicles, it still exists. So it's not like Tesla is getting or had this benefit that nobody else could get, and now it's gone, and Tesla's like, well, okay, well, you didn't use it, you lose it. No, it still exists. They can still use it, right? What Elon's against is a new credit, right? A new EV tax credit. Why? Because we don't need it, right? We're past that point. We don't need it anymore. You can make an EV cost effective. Tesla's proved that. We don't need to sit there and keep adding to our annual deficit. And I think that's Elon's main point. And it wasn't just about the tax credit. It was just in general with everything. You know, he was saying that the Build Back Better plan, we don't need to keep pumping money into our country or printing money into our country. Just so what? So we can get into more debt, so we can have higher inflation? Thank goodness Build Back Better plan didn't pass. This is not a joke. We really do have a problem with debt in this country. Not just debt, but our deficit. Musk has also mocked Biden on occasion. Once he said Biden was still sleeping, effectively mirroring former President Donald Trump's Sleepy Joe insult. Some in the administration have privately called Musk names such as a-hole for what he said about Biden, according to people with knowledge of the situation. I have nothing against Biden. I have nothing against Biden otherwise, apart from general concern about more deficit spending, which would apply to any president, and actively supported the Obama-Biden election, Musk told CNBC on Tuesday. Data from Nonpartisan. This just talks about how Elon contributed to Biden's campaign and vice versa. Okay, White House freeze out. Biden and senior White House officials have privately signaled to their allies that they have no immediate plans to invite Musk to any upcoming meetings with senior executives, according to people familiar with the matter. These people declined to be named in order to speak freely about private conversations. Okay, so that's just a repeat in the article. Musk has berated the president on Twitter, yada, yada, yada. Let's come down here. There's more down here. Okay, so all right, so this was interesting. A person close to the president told CNBC that there was a push to bring Musk to the table to discuss the president's $1 trillion infrastructure package since the executive had founded a tunnel digging firm called the Boring Company. I thought that was interesting. This was the most interesting part. Some in the White House, including climate advisor Ali Zaid, believe only unionized car companies such as GM and Ford should be meeting with Biden and senior administration officials, some of these people explain. That's very odd. The White House pushed back on this characterization. Ali Zaidi, well, that's interesting. They spelled the name here with an I at the end, and here they didn't, so I don't really know how to say it. Has met every automaker at least once, including Tesla, many times. This was clearly written on the fly. This is why I hate all this kind of clickbaity articles. They just write it so quickly to get it out. I mean, I've already read a few parts where I'm like, oh, that doesn't make sense. That's horrible grammar, and I'm the worst at grammar too. Engineer, not liberal arts major. President Biden is focused on creating good union jobs across the country and believes firmly that every worker in every state must have free and fair choice to join a union. Okay, the same rhetoric there. I thought that was an interesting article. It's interesting to see that Elon responded to CNBC talking about how he'd be open and he wouldn't embarrass Biden or say anything stupid, essentially. He's not going to sit there and crack jokes, especially not at the White House. And I think it's funny how it's almost like they have this weird idea or perception of Elon as if his Twitter and his persona on Twitter and the memes and everything, that's how he is in person, right? And it's not quite so. Like, Elon can be diplomatic. He can be a PC, politically correct person, a person who, just acts respectable and proper when needed. Or, I mean, there's a reason why he has a good relationship with China, right? Like, you're not going to be sitting there cracking jokes in front of China or the China president Xi Jinping or anyone like that. I mean, it's just kind of comical. And then on top of that, Elon Musk and Obama had a great relationship, right? This is just a missed opportunity by Biden. And I think that, hopefully seeing Elon kind of open the door a little bit to maybe repair relationships with the White House, I think that'll be good for all of us. I think at the end of the day, you want to have the administration be supportive of what you're doing. You want to have that open dialogue because it's good to have friends, right? You get more with honey, right? And yes, there's been tension, and yes, Biden has ignored Tesla, but you know what? He capitulated. He acknowledged what Tesla was, and by no means should that really be considered as praise. He was kind of, strong-armed to do that by the petition, but I think that was enough to allow Elon to say, hey, if I was invited, I wouldn't screw around. I wouldn't make jokes, right? It would be done properly, and maybe this could be the beginning of a renewed relationship between the two. By all means, they don't have to be best friends, but I think as a stockholder, it would benefit Tesla, it would benefit Elon, it'd benefit SpaceX for them to get along at least amicably where they can have a conversation, right? This whole no communication at all doesn't work for anyone. All right, so we'll leave it there. Those are my thoughts. This article, interesting, came out last second, poorly written. Check it out for yourself. Bigger picture, I think come April, we will hopefully be out of this just bloodshed that we see in the markets. Again, I think having clarity on what's going to happen with Russia and Ukraine and clarity with what Jerome Powell and the Fed are going to do moving forward, I think that's all the market's really waiting for and anticipating. And until then, I think a lot of people are going to stay on the sidelines. Once we know where the direction is, what the move is going to be by the Fed, once we have a better idea of what Putin's going to do, is he going to continue? Is he not? What are the sanctions, right? All this can take time to play out. But I think by April, we'll know that, we'll have clarity. And then from there, we will have been so exhausted with all the selling that it's going to be inevitable where people are going to flood back in. Once again, none of this financial advice. I highly recommend you don't try to time the market. I am probably going to be horribly wrong about this. This probably won't age well because it never does when you try to time anything. But as of February 22nd of 2022, cool date, right? These are my thoughts. So these thoughts can change at any moment. So don't do anything with those. Make your own judgments, do your own research. All right. Again, I think that's enough asterisks and cautionary advisory comments there. All right. We're going to leave it there. Thank you for watching. If you stuck to the end, do us a favor, help us out, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that bell. I love you all. Peace.